Subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon to never miss a video from us.
Today's episode is not just another sit down, it's an exclusive opportunity to dive deep into the journey of a visionary who's worn many hats, from sailing the high seas to navigating corporate boardrooms. A true transformer who blends sharp business acumen with the heart for coaching and empowering others. We are absolutely thrilled to welcome Mr. Rohit Bahl with over 26 years of experience spanning across industries like shipping, real estate, IT, and HR tech. Rohit is an ICF credential coach, a board member of the ICF Delhi NCR chapter, a corporate trainer, master hypnotist, and certified energy healer. He has coached senior VPs, CEOs, startup teams, and rising managers, blending positive psychology, NLP emotional intelligence, and a deep understanding of human behavior into a powerful, result driven approach. Welcome to the expert interview series, Rohit, and hope our viewers get to learn from your experiences.
Thank you so much, Pooja, for the introduction, and it's a privilege to be here. I'm very happy to share with the audience.
Right. So we begin with the first and the most important question. You have shifted your career from Navy to HR tech, and now you are a coach and an energy healer. How did you start this journey? I mean, why the transition?
Good question. It's quite a adventurous and a ambitious life with maneuvering with different careers. I
Okay.
initially started with the merchant navy, and that was my passion. But as you say that man proposes, God disposes. While I was in the navy, I met with an accident, and I was post that bedridden for almost 3.5 4 years, which was a very tough period in life. And I was in a way, I didn't have an option but to quit. I was advised by the doctors to change my line. Post that, I worked with companies like Genpact. I worked with the media company. I was for over a decade working in the real estate sector, and my last stint was as the group head, commercial sales with Bharti Realty. That's the real estate arm of Airtel Group.
Right.
Uh, Post that, I was in the HR tech. But since I mentioned that, my spiritual journey started after that accident, and that's how I got into energy healing. I did a lot of things, a lot of meditations, pranic healing, Reiki, past life regression, crystal therapy. So all of that was happening on parallelly while I was working and professionally doing what I was. And there was a deep passion that I developed. So because of going through certain challenges in life, I think I developed a very high quotient of empathy and compassion. And last 4 5 years, this was building up in my mind in terms of wanting to give back in a way where I could help or play a part in empowering people's lives, helping them, enabling them to find their highest potential. And that's how I think I eventually turned into a coach, and I'm just enjoying the journey.
So was it hard to switch from a structured corporate job to coaching and giving energy healing?
So it's been a very interesting turn and twist, I would say. Not hard at all, because the coaching that I'm doing currently is corporate coaching only.
Okay.
It's helping people maneuver their challenges within their professional lives that they are, and of course for personal as well. Because in coaching, we always say never coach the problem, coach the person. And
Right.
when we talk about a person, it is a holistic view that we have to take. So I would say that the spiritual bent, and I do meditate regularly as well. So my spiritual practices that I've done for over 20 years now only are an added advantage that I get over certain other coaches maybe who aren't as spiritually involved as well. So I think it's a very fantastic blend of looking at it a very holistically, looking at a person very holistically and helping him or her, enabling them, empowering them to realize their highest potential.
And I think that helps you connect better with the person as well.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So, while you do executive coaching and also corporate training, how would you describe the differences between the two and the similarities, if there are any?
The coaching and training, you mean?
Right,
So, good question. This is something which a lot of people get confused, especially the laymen who aren't very familiar with coaching or training.
right.
Training, everybody is aware because it's been going on for decades now. But coaching is something which is relatively new. In the last decade, only it has picked up pace. Last 4 5 years, it's started getting a little more
Right.
ingrained within the mainstream system organization. The essential difference is that coaching is a very highly, deeply personalized one-to-one sessions that you do with the client or with the coachee. Sometimes in group, like a team coaching or a group coaching setting, there also maximum number of participants are about 4 or 5, which is still quite rare, not as common, but mostly it is one-to-one. What really happens there is that a coach essentially creates a very safe space for the person to get into deep reflection. Coaching essentially entails getting into or doing very thought provoking, deep conversations, which allow people to go deeper in themselves and find, it's like unlocking your own self awareness. And
Right.
from there emerge solutions, from there emerges direction, from there emerges clarity, and those kinds of things which come from within you. And the coach is only a facilitator. Whereas in training, it's very starkly different. Training is, of course, firstly, it's one to many format. uh, there's a proper dissemination of information, knowledge, where the trainer would come in and share a lot of knowledge. He is or she is expected to be a subject matter expert on that particular area, and
Right.
using different modalities, engagement, exercises, role plays, and activities, they would try and kind of share all of that information. But essentially, there's one person sharing and disseminating information to the
Right.
other participants. Whereas in coaching, there is no telling, there is no sharing of information. There is only deep exploration where the coach is a partner to the client.
Right. So, can we say that training is more formal and coaching is a little, I would not say informal, but a more personalized way of connecting?
Kind of, yes, but I would not like to call it in terms of formal or informal. I would say the settings are both professional and
Okay.
formal. However, coaching is a safe space where it's one to one, so you can go much deeper. You talk about issues within you where you can trust your coach completely. So you are far more vulnerable as a coachee or as a client. You
Right.
feel safe to share whatever your innermost feelings and thoughts are with the coach. Whereas in a training setup, of course, you can't do that because the setting is not intimate. It's many people there. You don't want to expose yourself or feel vulnerable in front of a whole group, and the entire formats are different, to be honest.
Yeah, and one-to-one interactions are also lesser, I believe.
Yes, absolutely. While in trainings, also the trainer does connect one to one with people, but in front of everybody. So
Right.
whatever is being discussed in the whole is in the whole room for everybody to hear.
And with the
Whereas in
restricted
coaching setup,
environment.
yeah, right. But whereas in a coaching setup, the first ethic that we follow as an ICF coach or any coaching framework that you come from is that whatever you speak in the session, it stays confidential. It's highly confidential. So that's what allows people to really open.
Right. Thank you so much. You've given a proper distinction, and I think doubts of most of the people would have been clarified by now. Moving on to the next important question. From shipping to HR tech, what have been some of the biggest leadership learning across these diverse industries that you've taken away?
Wow, that's a nice question. Almost 25, 26 years of learnings. Very difficult to sum up in few minutes. However, I can pick up certain qualities or traits of an effective good leader. Uh, I usually like to call them as transferable competencies because irrespective of which sector, industry
You
you're
work in.
from, it kind of just works because these are basic foundational principles of being a good, effective leader. And to name a few, there are loads and loads of them to be honest, but to name a few, since first and foremost would be for a leader to have a clear vision of the organization in terms of what the organizational vision and goal is, aligning yourself to that first and foremost for any leader. And then, of course, ensuring that how can your team also get aligned to the same vision and goal. Because
Right.
as a leader, it's your job to make sure that you're leading, right? So if you're leading, it's not just restricted to you, but along with you, your entire team needs to get aligned with that vision
Right.
and goal. That's the first and foremost. Second, of course, is authenticity. Uh, I just cannot undermine or I just cannot speak enough about the importance of human connection. And human connection happens only when you're authentic.
Right.
And when you also at certain times show vulnerability, aspects of vulnerability, of course, in certain doses, you can't be completely vulnerable. You need to be aware of what environment you're in. But there was a time for very long, vulnerability was considered as a sign of weakness.
Weakness.
That has, Pooja, that's changed now. Today, the biggest of leaders that one can really think of, they all show signs of vulnerability to certain relevant, appropriate team
Mhm.
members. And that really helps because the minute your team member realizes that you're just another human like us or like them,
Right.
and it's a sign of authenticity, you suddenly connect with that person, you start believing in that person, you start respecting that person for the person who he or she is. So that's, I think, something which is really important. Be authentic, form human connections. But one more thing which I would say, you would say, Rohit, everybody talks about it nowadays, is being emotionally intelligent. But I
Right.
just cannot not talk about it because it is so very crucial, critical, and important. But there are different aspects of emotional intelligence. Very quickly, I'll touch upon the four basic pillars of emotional intelligence. The first and foremost is self awareness. What are my own thoughts, feelings, and emotions on a day to day basis that I go through? Am I
Okay.
even aware of those? A lot of times we are angry, we are sad, we are depressed, we are elated, we are happy, excited, but are we really aware of what we're going through? And more important are not when you're above the equilibrium line. More important are when you're below the equilibrium line. And
Right.
that's where you need to pick yourself and get aware of, try and get aware of that. And once you get aware of, so that's self-awareness. And the second is, and how am I dealing? How am I acting? What are my actions when I'm in those low states? That's
Right.
very important. One simple office scenario could be I am upset, I scream at my team members. I
Right.
just pull up somebody for no reason. Now that's going to have repercussions. That's going to have consequences. Now, is that person's fault? No. It's my inability to manage my own self. So how can somebody else, or why should somebody else bear the brunt of it? So
Right.
that's why it becomes so important. The second is self-regulation. Now that I'm aware that I go low at, what triggers me, what makes me really angry or wild, what makes me really depressed or sad. Sometimes I just can't control my emotions. I
Right.
get very anxious. Now those are my limitations or my constraints. So I have to learn to regulate and manage those. And that's where the resilience part comes in, emotional resilience, in terms of being able to uplift yourself the minute you go below the equilibrium point. And there's something called the refractory period. It's about, this is the equilibrium. You are
Mm-hmm.
here, excellent. But the minute you fall below here, the time you take from coming from below here back to the equilibrium, that's called the refractory period. So
Okay.
the idea is leaders who are effective, leaders who are very productive, effective, powerful, strong, those are the leaders who actually can reduce the refractory period, and they find their own solutions of how to bring down, how to reduce the refractory period and come up to the equilibrium point as soon as possible. So, for example, something very simple example, something triggers a leader, something really bad happens, some bad news comes in. One
Right.
leader carries that for the rest of his day and has repercussions. Whoever he's meeting in the meetings, and that, wherever he goes, he or she goes,
Yeah.
there it's unpleasantness, right? The other
Right.
leader takes 5 minutes to absorb it, assimilate it, and then also has the emotional resilience to say, okay, I'll deal with it later, no problem. And then goes back to his normal work the entire day in a very happy, the usual way that he does. Now,
Right.
who's going to be more effective? Do I really even need to answer that?
Right.
So that's the second part. Two more quick parts that I'd like to share is the third one is empathy. Empathy, everybody talks about empathy, but of course, empathy also has certain limits in terms of how much to empathize, with
Right.
whom all to empathize. And empathy essentially just means trying to put yourself in the other person's shoes in terms of what they are going through, what challenges they're facing, what fears they're facing, what limitations they have. And as a leader, try and empower them, not pull them down, not belittle them. That's the effective difference between somebody who's a leader and somebody who's just a boss.
Right.
Boss will belittle and take advantage. The leader will try and understand and empower you and try and get you out of those limitations or whatever challenges it is that one is facing. But the fourth point is, again, extremely important, is social skills. Now, within the fabric of social skills comes you fostering, building authentic relationships with everybody in the ecosystem. Now, when I say everybody, does not limit you to your immediate team members. As a leader, you need to build relationships with every stakeholder within the organization and outside the organization.
Right.
And when I say authentic relations, one is a formality relationship, which anybody can make out,
Mm.
and you can just see through it. But the other is when you're really authentic and you genuinely care about people. It comes from a space of genuine curiosity to know about the other person, to empathize with them if they're going through some challenges. And I think these four pillars, they really make you a very strong, powerful leader. And that's the difference between leaders who are really effective and leaders who are maybe not as effective. And
Right.
then, needless to say, adaptability, agility, resilience, perseverance, courage, all of these are, I think, everybody knows.
Thank you so much. I think you've summed up the entire transition that has happened over a period of time from controlled environment, how leadership was earlier, and now to it's more like a one-to-one interaction, how they influence their teammates to come up with solutions, not just controlling them altogether. Plus,
Absolutely.
one point that you raised, and I think that's very valid, that if as a leader, if you're vulnerable yourself, you're able to show your weaknesses. The other person, if they are faltering, if your team member is faltering, then they are also able to easily come across and share their problems with the leader.
Very, very well said. Absolutely. It's just about creating that safe space for your team to allow them to be who they are,
Right.
and not for them to always put on a pretext because they're in office. I mean,
Right.
if you look at it, Pooja, on a very realistic note, we are spending most part of our lives in the office nowadays,
Correct.
more than what we spend at home or more than what we spend in the with our immediate families. So,
Right.
is it not responsibility of a leader to make sure that he makes them feel psychologically safe, physically safe, emotionally safe, and also make them feel valued, respected, wanted, heard? And these are all parts of inclusive leadership, if you say, if you want to say that, put it that way.
Thank you so much. I think you've clarified most of the points and very well structured in a very well structured way.
Thank you.
Moving on to the next question. You have worked with top CEOs and startup founders. What are some of the common leadership blind spots that they tend to have?
Very interesting question, because this is a reality and a fact that no matter how good we are at whatever stage of our career or whatever organization we are leading, there are certain blind spots that everybody has.
Right.
Some of the common ones that I've noticed are, to begin with, lack of self-awareness. Like I talked
Okay.
about, having that emotional, awareness about your thoughts, feelings, emotions. A lot of times I've noticed senior leaders, very senior leaders, just not being aware of how they are feeling, how they are thinking, how they are acting because of those feelings and emotions, and how the
Right.
organization is not getting the best of what it could get out of that leader because of that lack of awareness. To add to this, biases, we all carry our own biases. Leaders also carry their own biases. And these biases could be very subtle, but those subtle biases also make a difference. For example, a simple subtle bias could be that, hey, for this sales role, I don't want a female. Now, why? Is there a proven track record that females won't perform? But it's just a perception in the mind that no, I want a male because he could possibly go on the field trips more often, or whatever be the case. But
Correct.
there's no validation done to this. It's just a bias that one is carrying. The other simple one could be simple biases like, people who are taking a lot of breaks after every 1 hour are
Hmm.
people who are serious about their job. Now,
Right.
to the contrary, how do you know that person, if he or she is working for 1 hour absolutely with full focus, and then they want a 5 minute quick relieving break or a breather so that they can focus for the next 1 hour or 45 minutes? Even, if you see it's like, it's a no, proven fact. I'm forgetting the name of that principle. There's a terminology which actually says, it's just slipped my mind, where it says that you are most productive when you work for 40-45 minutes at a stretch and you take
And
a
then you,
5 minute break, and
right.
then again sit down for 45. But because of their own biases, they feel somebody who's taking a break after 45 minutes or 1 hour is not serious about work. Now, that's absolutely not true. And
Right.
similarly, likewise, there are many multiple other biases that people carry. So I think that's one area where, in most of the coaching sessions, also when they realize like a there's literally a look of astonishment on their face, like, I never thought of it this way. And
Yeah.
it's like a aha moment for them.
Okay.
That's very interesting to witness as well. So that's one. The other one, I think, which really is very underrated but highly important, is them not realizing the importance of active listening. And active listening is not only restricted to what the person is saying, it goes beyond in terms of what the person is not saying. And what I mean by that is, looking at the body language. Sometimes the person is hesitant or is not confident enough to speak up in front of the leader or the boss, but their
Right.
body language speaks a lot more. And the
True.
leader, an effective leader, should have the ability to be able to observe that and call that out, and then make that person comfortable to speak
Comfortable.
where the actual reason is. So
Correct.
active listening is something which leaders often tend to miss out on. We talked a little about this earlier also, command and control style. you know
Right.
so that's something which they don't realize. It's not intentional a lot of times, because they're so caught up with the pressures of meeting the targets that they have. It just by default becomes that mode of operation. But what they don't possibly undermine or they miss out on is that stifles creativity,
Right.
it stifles engagement, it stifles the safety of that person. And when there's creativity, which is creativity space is not given to the employees, they feel disconnected.
Right.
And that's harmful. So these are some of the common biases that I've witnessed.
I think even the top of the leaders who are working at the highest level of the hierarchy, they kind of miss out on this. And coaching is helping them. It's more than an advice, it is like a transformation.
True. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Moving on to another important question. What are some of the common misconceptions about coaching that you often have to clarify to people?
It's a very interesting question, and yes, there are a lot of times when there are misconceptions. So like I mentioned earlier about coaching, first uh, misconception, or the impression that people have is that coaching is more like, you tell people, give advice to them. It's a quick fix solution. It's often confused with mentoring. Mentoring is something where I've been there. I am a subject matter expert on whatever XYZ topic. Because I've grayed my hair or I've lost my hair, so it's not for nothing. It's because I've got a lot of experience. So you listen to me, don't repeat the same mistakes, do what I'm telling you to do, and you will succeed. That's
Right.
mentoring. This is often confused with coaching. Now, coaching is not this. Coaching, you don't tell anything. Coaching, like I mentioned earlier, it's a partnership. It's a partnership between me and the person who's the coachee.
Mm-hmm.
I am not in mentorship or any other format. You are above. There's a level of supremacy that you have, or superiority that you have over the other person. In coaching, you don't. In coaching, you're equal partners. In
Okay.
coaching, the person is only going to facilitate some very thought-provoking, deep conversations, which will evoke awareness within that person, which will help enable that person to expand their own current level of thinking beyond what they could have ever imagined themselves. So the
Okay.
idea is, in a way, in coaching, you are not telling anything, and it's not a quick fix solution.
Right.
The coachee needs to be prepared to work on himself or herself for them to get results. The coach will only be able to facilitate certain awarenesses that come to you, help you get clarity, direction, but who's going to walk on that path? That's the coachee. So it's not a quick fix solution, but it's a fantastic solution if someone is keen to work on themselves and grow. The objective of both, whether mentoring, training, coaching, I won't talk about consulting, but training, coaching, mentoring, the objective is personal and professional growth. The
Right.
approaches are very different and all have their own place in the ecosystem.
So, just a quick question. How does one decide that they should go for coaching?
If they feel that they need, there is certain clarity issues that they're dealing with, there are, they want to elevate themselves, they feel stuck, they feel burnt out, they don't know what to do. That's the excellent time or a perfect time for them to get a coach in their life, in terms of untangling their thoughts, untangling the mindset that they're carrying, untangling certain patterns and limiting beliefs or constraints that they're holding, which they're themselves not aware of. Now, I'll share a simple anecdote. You can't read the label of the jar from within the jar. You need to step out of the jar to be able to read the label.
Correct.
The other example I always give is, you can't see your own eyelashes.
Mm.
As women, maybe sometimes when you're applying, the makeup or the cosmetics, you might, that also with the help of a mirror. But otherwise, you don't. As men, we don't see it for days, months together, right? But even if we want to, we can't unless we use the mirror. Why is that? Because it's so close to you that you can't see it. So the idea is that when you're in a particular given situation, you feel messed up. You don't know what to do, where to move, begin, what actions to take. You need to step out from the subjective self and take a look at it very holistically and very objectively. And
Okay.
that's where a coach's job comes in. The coach helps you to view the entire situation very holistically and very objectively, so that you can find your own answer. I don't know if that clarifies.
That answer, I mean, that I was seeking for. So it's more like the healthcare that we're looking at for our overall health. It's like mental care that coaching is providing.
Absolutely. Mental well being, not just for career, but any aspect of your life. It could be regarding your job, it could be regarding your business, it could be regarding your relationships at home with your friends, socially, it could be regarding certain money matters, it could be
Mhm.
any aspect of your life where you need clarity in terms of what's the best decision to take. And essentially, what does coaching mean? Coaching is very forward looking. Coaching is, I'm at a point A right now, I want to be at point B. How to go from point A to point B is what the coach's job is, because there are 10 ways, right? You want to go from here. I don't know if you're from Delhi or not, but if you, for example, want to go from Gurgaon to CP, which is about 20 kilometers, there
Right.
are 10, 15, 20 different ways. But what is the best suitable way? Now, the coach can guide and tell you, hey, there's a huge traffic jam coming up here. So better to avoid this. There
Right.
is something here. So better to take this route. So that's where the coach guides and helps and facilitates the client to reach from point A to point B in the fastest, shortest possible time.
And of course, at the end of the day, the best choice has to be made by the person, the coachee.
Absolutely, very well said. That eventually, in the end, it is the coachee who chooses the best way to take forward. The client will only show the mirror, but the coachee has to take the decision. That power is with the coachee always.
Right. Thank you so much, sir, that you explained it very beautifully.
Thank you. Thank you.
You've coached different clients of different at different levels. So, what are the usual differences that you observe when you're coaching with different client profiles, from emerging leaders to seasoned executives?
Yes, the kind of topics that come to coaching or the kind of issues that they're dealing with, they're usually different.
Very different.
Before the differences, if I can come down quickly to commonalities, there are certain things that remain common.
Okay.
Uh, and I just like to kind of share that also across whatever level you are at. The first commonality that I've noticed is the fear of taking decisions. Whether you're really junior or you're at mid level or you're at senior level, there is always this fear of taking a decision before taking a decision that how am I going to be looked at by the organization? Is that going to work or it's not going to work? And if it doesn't work, in what light would I be portrayed in front of the whole organization? So that's something which is very common, I've noticed. But coming to the differences, the team delegation skills, team management skills, how to achieve the targets, certain conflicts that are arising within the team, how to really manage them, address them better.
Right.
But when we come to mid level and above, which is senior level, management, CEOs, senior VPs or VPs, the level of conversations or the kinds of conversations completely shift. And there, the conversations are not about what I just mentioned. The conversations are broadly about very strategic vision, strategic planning of the organization for the organization in terms of where do I see the organization 3 or 5 years from today.
Okay.
It's a lot about navigating complex stakeholder dynamics with regard to managing the stakeholders within the organization, outside the organization. It's about creating and designing a legacy, that they want to leave for that organization. It's about their own executive presence. How can they enhance it? One thing which is strange, but it is, you might have even heard of it. It's very commonly used now. It's the imposter syndrome.
Right.
A lot of leaders I've seen now in the confines of the coaching sessions, they would never openly say about this, but a lot of them are kind of dealing with this imposter syndrome where they feel they've got more than they're due. And suddenly there's a huge responsibility on their shoulders, and they're like, am I the best person to do this?
Right.
Am I good enough to be able to do this? And that feeling is also something which is very common I've seen, especially in the senior ups.
Right.
So those are the kind of topics we mostly deal with.
Level of conversation that happens at the mid level or a junior level is very different from what happens at the senior level. It's more strategic, it's more directed, and I think you're helping them build a better future for themselves and for the organization as well.
Absolutely, very well said, Pooja. So just to build on what you've shared, so at a senior level, it's more about discussions about, because whatever action or decision they're going to take at that level is going to impact the whole ecosystem, which is the whole organization.
Correct.
And naturally, it can't be, it has to be fully thought of, well calculated, well informed decision. So
Hmm.
whatever discussions happen at that level are more about how a macro system is, environment is,
Right.
and how the organization overall will all be getting impacted with that decision. It's mostly long term, mid to long term. It's not about immediate repercussion or consequence. It's mostly about mid to long term. Whereas within the mid segment or junior leaders, newfound leaders, they haven't reached that level of being able to see what senior leaders see. So naturally, there has to be a difference. Their conversations are restricted to me performing as a good leader to my role,
Right.
me ensuring that my team is doing well, me ensuring that we're getting the targets met, and it's restricted to that only.
Right. So it's a microscopic view at the bottom end, and when you talk about the top level leaders, they have a holistic view of the whole thing.
Absolutely, and I must also share one more thing since you brought this up, that even at a very senior level, while we are talking about strategic planning and vision and goals and where you see the organization, there's a huge role of the mindset there as well.
Of course.
Because when I said imposter syndrome, they also have same feelings which we or anybody else has at a junior level. That am,
Correct.
like I said, that am I doing the right thing? Do I have it in me to be able to do this? So that time it's very critical for a coach to work on their mindset to make sure that they're confident enough of taking whatever decisions they're taking and they believe in what they do. So to instill that belief, there is a certain dialogue that needs to happen, and that's where coaches come in very handy. And that's why today, more than ever before, senior leaders need coaches because they're also shouldering a lot of responsibility and they also face similar dilemmas that a lot of
Inhibitions.
Yeah, inhibitions, dilemmas. Yes.
Thank you so much. You've clarified, but I think this conversation can go for as long. But moving on to the next question. In your experience, what are some of the common mindsets that tend to hold people back, no matter how successful they are?
So the first thing I can think of is when they feel that I've been there, done that, seen that, all of that, and then
Mm,
there's an attitude that comes in, and that brings in a lot of complacency because
right,
I've already done that. So it's like your growth stops there. So it's also a term that we always call about we say growth mindset versus fixed mindset. So
right,
while they have grown in the sector or the industry that they have, but somewhere they feel that we've done enough now, we know it all, and that genuine curiosity to learn goes away. Now if that goes away, then the growth also stops. I would, the only thing that I've seen is that leaders who really keep growing are the ones who are always stay humble. They have this sense of humility around them,
mhm,
lot of humility, and very genuine curiosity to keep learning, growing, and that kind of keeps the wheel moving. But the biggest I think fault that I can see is my way or highway. And you're not open to feedback, and
right.
that really stops and hampers the growth.
So, can we say that mindset is like a quiet gatekeeper of progress?
Absolutely, it all starts here, it all ends here. Everything is about
Right,
inside.
right,
The best of the best leaders also, why they've been able to achieve what they have is because here internally, their wiring is progressive.
right.
They're no different than others. Every individual, every human being has the same limbs, same brain, same everything, but it's just how you think internally.
And if you have that mindset to learn, that's how the whole team is going to progress and the whole organization is going to progress with you.
Absolutely. Such a lovely point you brought out, that it's not only going to impact you, it's going to impact the whole organization, because in a way you're setting a precedence, you're setting a
Right,
culture. And if you have yourself are showing up, in your own being, if you're showing up as a person who wants to seek, who wants to grow, who's not carrying an attitude but a layer of humility, then
right.
that seeps into the whole organization. Everybody is like, they emulate your everybody wants to emulate, your leader. So if your leader is someone who's setting the right precedences, then you love to follow him or her.
I think the one person that came to my mind once you said this was Mr. Ratan Tata, and he was one person who's always been so humble, so kind, and yet his influence and impacted so many people.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't think I could have thought of anyone better. The magnanimity with which his humility, how it spoke with millions across, and despite being who he was,
Right.
the way he would conduct himself with utmost respect for everybody. I think it's just he's the epitome of humility and respect.
Thank you so much, sir. I think we've discussed a very important point here. What is more important is to be humble, to have that thing in you to grow and progress.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I just can't undermine it, or I can't say it again and again, that the key to growth, if you ask me, is having a seeking mind with open curiosity and deep humility.
Right.
This, I think, is really something which is a lethal combination to growth.
You concluded it well. Thank you. So, moving on to a very important question. What's that one mistake uh, that you made in your career when you started that taught you a lesson that you still carry today?
Instead of a mistake, can I answer it in a different way? That what is that one or two things that I've really learned across over 2 decades of experience, which I've learned over the period of time. But yeah, if one realizes, and if I had known right at the beginning, my life was probably could have been better and more different. So it's not a mistake, but it's a learning which one gets with time, which I'd like to share with everyone. That life growth in life is never linear. There
Right.
are always going to be ups and downs. There are going to be moments when you're really at a high, and before you even know it, suddenly someone is going to pull the rug under your feet,
Right.
and and not somebody, and just life will do that. Life is meant like that. So it's never going to be a very uniform growth. It's always going to be certain challenges. It's always going to be certain tough situations and circumstances that one has to deal with. Could be emotional, could be personal, could be professional, could be a combination. But what really defines in those moments is how resilient you are, how
Mm.
you are able to get back up, and not just back up, but get back up stronger. If you are aware of the fact that this is a natural process, you stop beating yourself up to it. Why did it
Mm.
happen to me? It's supposed to happen. If you're aware of it, you're going to be better prepared to handle it. And that's the
Correct.
reason I wanted to share this with everyone, that it's normal. None of the big leaders that you see out there have had a very cushy life. Today, you see them only as someone who's doing so well, and you see all the fame and the glamour, but you don't
Right.
see the struggles that they've gone through to reach where they've reached. And there must have been hundreds of failures, steps, in a ladder, steps of failures on which they have climbed and then reached and become successful. So that's something that people need to really be aware of. One more important thing that I'd like to share, which is my learning after 2 decades, over 2 decades, never compare yourself to others. Your only comparison, I would say, the barometer for me to compare, for comparison, is only with myself. Which means, am I a better version of myself today than what I was yesterday? Can I be a little better
Right.
than what I am today, tomorrow? And if I'm working on that, yardstick or measurement, I am certainly going to keep growing, and that quest for learning will not stop. And I want to quote Shah Rukh Khan here. Might sound a bit filmy or cliche, but that's very true. Once Shah Rukh Khan had made a statement that I'm the best in Bollywood. He kept saying it for years, right? A lot of times, even me, a lot of times people didn't understand, took that as a sign of arrogance, but it
Mm.
wasn't arrogance, because he also further summed it up by saying that I have no competition in Bollywood. My only competition is with me.
Right. Right. Yes.
So he
Yes.
was not even in the rat race. So what he was trying to say is that I am the best because I'm the best in my own eyes. I don't care about the world, what the world says. I am only trying to get better and better and better with myself in my own eyes.
Correct.
Such a profound thing. It's a very profound statement that he made, and look where he is today. Even till after 30 years of ruling, he's still wherever he is, and I think I really appreciate and admire this quality of his.
I think you've quoted it well, and your journey in itself is an example for many to learn how there was a dip, and then how you bounced back and came out stronger, and you're doing pretty well. I think you are yourself an example for many
No,
to
thank
learn.
you. Thank you, Pooja. Yes, I agree. I do agree. I won't say I don't agree, but I just feel my journey has just begun. There's lots to do, lots to do. So I just feel that I've just taken few baby steps now, and there's miles to cover.
That's the mindset that we require at the moment, progressive mindset. I'm still learning.
True, absolutely. I agree.
So, last and the most important question, which everybody would be waiting for, what's that one piece of advice you would like to give to someone who plans to make a career in coaching and leadership training?
First and foremost, only think of this career as a coach or a trainer if you have genuine interest in, and if it's your mojo, and if it's your genuine interest, and if it makes you happy and fulfilled to help others, because this is a very noble profession.
Right,
It's not something where one gets into it for money. Money is a byproduct. Yes, everybody needs money, but the essential reason to become a coach or a trainer is not to earn money. It's to really, it's a deeper inner calling. And if you have that passion and inner calling that I want to make a difference to people's lives, I want to help them grow, I want to help empower them, I want to help let them find their highest potential. And if you can find happipiness in their success, then you can become a fantastic coach and a trainer. But if all of what I've just shared, if it's not there and you're just thinking that hey, it's good fame, good money, I would not then advise. There are many other careers you could take. Because reason why I'm saying that is because then it would be disservice to your clients if you don't have it from within you. Because a trainer or a coach, when you go and share, do whatever, whether you're training or you're coaching, the person comes to you with a lot of expectation, and
right,
they look up to you for them to gain something, and you have to be authentic enough to be able to give that to them. So that's one. Second, of course, if you have already have all of these and you want to be a coach or a trainer, then please have a mindset of continuous learning. You need to keep upskilling yourself, keep upgrading yourself, hire a mentor for yourself. I am a coach, but I have a mentor. All coaches have mentors. All
right,
senior coaches also have mentors. So the point is that you never stop learning, because today wherever I am, I need to be, I need to become better than who I am today.
right,
So you have to invest in continuous learning. I undertake trainings as well. Being a trainer, I undertake trainings as well, where I feel I can upskill and upgrade myself. And everybody needs to do that. So
right.
so just have a genuine curiosity to keep learning, keep growing, and I'm sure you'll be a fantastic coach or a trainer.
Plus, more than that, as you rightly said, it's a two-way relationship. It's not just about taking. It's also about giving. You're listening. You're taking their burden and sharing, and helping them shoulder their burden as well. So that kind of requires a genuine effort.
Very nicely said, Pooja. And one more thing, if I can just share, last thing which came to my mind is active listening, which means that the success of coaching literally hinges on the coach's ability and skill of listening. So, I'll be very honest, and I'm okay being vulnerable because I used to speak a lot and I still do otherwise outside of my coaching session. But within a coaching session, I am absolutely pin drop silence
Mhm.
until and unless it's required for me to speak, because that session is not about me. That session is about the client
Other person.
and other person. And as a coach, it is a strong skill that all of us coaches need to acquire to be
Hmm.
able to listen. So in a session, it's a formula of 80-20 that we follow. Sometimes could be 5% plus minus, which means 80% of the times the client would be talking, 20% of the times the coach would be talking. And in those 20% of the times, we need to create that transformation. So imagine how much, imagine the kind of skills that are required. How can somebody create that difference in those 20% of the times that you're talking? And it's a skill. It's not easy. It comes with practice.
Right. So, as you said about active listening, I think you raised a valid point because we have a lot of speakers, but there are very few listeners, and the listening is more internally as well as externally listening to their body language, as you said earlier, and to their emotions as well.
True. True.
Right. Thank you so much, sir. I think this was one of the most wonderful experiences that I personally had, and listening to you was in itself a lot of learning experiences from you, a lot of takeaways for me as well.
Thank you so much, Pooja. That's very sweet of you, and it was lovely being here. Thank you for inviting me, and it was excellent talking to you.
Subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon to never miss a video from us.